Hey everybody, Aaron Rift here from NoDQ.com to talk about the greatest heel turns in wrestling history. I put up another poll on NoDQ.com asking people about what they thought were the greatest heel turns, got a lot of responses, and I decided to come up with my personal top 10 greatest heel turns. Let's start off with my number 10. Chris Jericho smashing Shawn Michaels into the Jeritron 5000. This was a big moment in Chris Jericho's career. This would be the beginning of his heel run and arguably his best period. Chris Jericho would have a tremendous 2008, 2009, and 2010. He was just on fire. He won NoDQ.com Superstar of the Decade, I think a lot due to this heel run, and he won Superstar of the Year 2 years. Chris Jericho, he reinvented his character completely. He went from being the happy-go-lucky, long-haired Chris Jericho, and he had a totally different demeanor. He was wearing the suits and cut his hair, and he was just great. He had a lot of great matches with Shawn Michaels, and it was also the feud of the year as voted by NoDQ.com visitors. So a really important moment in the career of Chris Jericho. Next up, we have Shawn Michaels super kicking Hulk Hogan on Raw in the summer of 2005. This was a really shocking moment because Shawn Michaels had been a babyface since his comeback, and everybody knew he was a born-again Christian. So he was this all-around good guy, and for him to do this out of nowhere, I mean, him and Hulk Hogan had just won a match, and they were celebrating. Hogan was doing his poses, Shawn Michaels was doing the poses, and then bam, he super kicks Hulk Hogan, and you just see this look of absolute disgust on the face of Shawn Michaels, just staring down, staring a hole right through Hulk Hogan. It was incredible. I mean, it was very memorable, and I really loved the Shawn Michaels heel run in 2005, and I'm just so sad it only lasted for a couple of months because it was some of his best work ever. The whole Larry King Live segment mocking Hulk Hogan where he's dressed up as him. Very funny stuff. And then the promo he did in Montreal when he was mocking Hulk Hogan and Bret Hart. I mean, that was some of Shawn Michaels' best work ever. And that whole heel turn was what set up all that stuff. And then the match at SummerSlam, which, people have mixed thoughts on that match. Shawn Michaels oversold a lot of moves for Hogan, but it was a huge match in WWE history, a dream match that we never thought we would see. So that was a big period in WWE history right there, and being able to see those two icons go at it. Next up, Triple H turning on Shawn Michaels in 2002. This was very shocking because Triple H just several months earlier had come back from a serious quad injury, and he was a babyface, and Shawn Michaels had just come back as well, and fans thought they were going to see a DX reunion. Both guys came out in the DX T-shirts, and you thought you were going to see a new beginning for DX, and then all of a sudden Triple H just give him the pedigree, and this would lead to a major heel run for Triple H. He would go on, first of all, him and Shawn Michaels would go on to have one of the greatest matches in WWE history at SummerSlam that year. That would be Shawn Michaels' comeback match. So this heel turn was setting up Shawn Michaels' comeback, and we know what Shawn Michaels accomplished. And Triple H would go on to form Evolution, and that would be one of the most dominant factions in WWE history, and that would lead to the rise of Randy Orton and Batista. All this was started when Triple H turned on Shawn Michaels. Next up, Randy Savage turning on Hulk Hogan in 1989, leading up to WrestleMania 5. This was a tremendous storyline, and this was during a period when WWE planned out things well in advance. Randy Savage won the world title at WrestleMania 4, and the plan all along was for Savage to turn heel and have Hogan beat him for the title the next year at WrestleMania 5. And leading up to it, you had this storyline with the Mega Powers, and just very slowly at each pay-per-view there would be some sort of tease of dissension. At SummerSlam, I think Hulk Hogan touched Elizabeth's butt or something, and then at Survivor Series he hugged her. Like every pay-per-view there was something else that little hints that there were issues, and like just a glare from Randy Savage or something small. And then leading up to the Royal Rumble, they were having issues, and then finally at the main event, Elizabeth got knocked down. Hulk Hogan was concerned about her, took her to the back, and then Randy Savage was he snapped. And it was great stuff. I mean, Randy Savage was at the top of his game. He was just such a great heel. Awesome storyline. And Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, finally the Mega Powers exploded. A storyline that people still talk about today. And it's remembered because, you had two of the greatest characters of all time. And I thought Randy Savage was just tremendous through the whole feud. All right, next up, Stephanie McMahon turning on her own father. This was Armageddon 1999. This was a significant heel turn because it led to the alliance of Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, and this was the beginning of the McMahon-Helmsley era. So this was a very big deal, and it led up to a lot of the storylines in 2000 with the McMahon-Helmsley era, and of course, Triple H and Stephanie getting together in real life following this storyline. So very significant, and a great heel turn because nobody saw it coming. Nobody thought Stephanie, the girl next door, she's so sweet that she would turn on her father. I think a lot of people were not expecting that to happen, and she did a great job with it, and it made for very entertaining television and made Raw the show to watch. It already was a show to watch, but even more so after this. All right, next we have The Rock revealed as the corporate champion. This was Survivor Series 1998. Another heel turn that I don't think people were expecting. The Rock had just turned babyface a few months earlier, and the Rock was building a lot of momentum, and then all of a sudden he's back to being a heel again. And it was huge because it put Rock over the top, and it made him the number one heel. I mean, he was the number 2 babyface next to Steve Austin. So by turning heel, he made himself the number 1 heel, and it put him in that big spot for WrestleMania to face Stone Cold Steve Austin and have that incredible feud. And it led up to The Rock versus Mankind, all those matches. And it really helped The Rock continue to evolve his character as well, being the heel and continuing to develop his character. I mean, it was just great stuff from The Rock, and that was one of the all-time great heel turns. Next up is Bret Hart's heel turn at WrestleMania 13 and then on Raw the next night. This was something that had been building up for several months. You had the Steve Austin and Bret Hart feud, and they ended up changing roles. Steve Austin was the hated heel, and Bret Hart was the babyface when it all began. But over a period of several months, there were things happening, and Bret Hart would start to complain about Steve Austin screwing him, and over again, Bret Hart would complain, and fans would just slowly start to turn on him. And then finally, at WrestleMania 13, Bret Hart beats Steve Austin. Steve Austin passes out while he's in the sharpshooter, and after the match, like any good heel, Bret Hart kicks him while he's down. And just like that, Bret Hart's a heel. And the next night on Raw, Bret Hart tells the fans, from coast to coast, you can kiss my ass. And that was the beginning of the Hart Foundation, the faction, and the America versus Canada feud. And it was just a great year in WWE. I mean, WWE was really starting to get into the Attitude Era mode, and week after week they were putting on better shows in WCW, and it took a year for the ratings to reflect that, but definitely by the time the Bret Hart heel turn got going, I mean, Raw was can't miss TV. All right, coming in at number 3 here, Andre the Giant turning on Hulk Hogan as the build-up for WrestleMania 3. Andre the Giant was very loved. He was a babyface for several years, and he was an icon. So for him to turn on Hulk Hogan was very shocking at the time. And I still remember that Piper's Pit segment when Andre came in and Bobby Heenan. Hogan was great here. Hogan felt like, Andre, what are you doing with Bobby Heenan? And I mean, Hogan was just tremendous. And then Andre challenged him for WrestleMania and then just ripped off the t-shirt, ripped off the crucifix. It was very powerful stuff. And then, of course, it led to, one of the biggest matches of all time, Pontiac Silverdome, sold out crowd, a record crowd, record pay-per-view buy rate for the time. I mean, it was huge, very big storyline, and Hulk Hogan, as great as he was, he was even greater when he had an opponent at an equal level, and that was Andre the Giant. It was, as Gorilla Monsoon said, the irresistible force meeting the immovable object. All right, coming in at my number 2, one of my all-time favorite heel turns, Shawn Michaels turning on Marty Jannetty, early 1992 during the barbershop segment. For a couple of months, it had been teased that they were going to split up. They were having miscommunications, but it looked like things were going to be patched up between the two of them. And then all of a sudden, bam! Shawn Michaels super kicks Marty Jannetty and then throws him through the barbershop window. If you saw that segment, you would never forget it. I mean, it was one of the best heel turns ever and one of the most memorable. And it was the beginning of the rise of Shawn Michaels as a single star. They couldn't have done that heel turn any better. And his whole complete 180, becoming this overly cocky guy with a sensational Sherry by his side. I mean, it was just great stuff. And then finally, my number 1 heel turn of all time, and I don't think many people will argue this one. I think it's pretty clear. The number 1 heel turn of all time, John Cena on Raw a couple weeks ago. No, I'm kidding. The number 1 heel turn of all time, Hulk Hogan at Bash at the Beach, turning on not just the fans, but the entire WCW organization and forming what we would come to know and love as the NWO. This was a major turning point in wrestling history. The biggest star in wrestling history up to that point, the biggest babyface of all time, shocking the world and turning heel. It was just an epic moment when you saw it, and the fans littered the ring. It was just a scene you had never saw before. And Bobby Heenan was great on commentary. Which side is he on, and all that stuff. And then Hogan just completely changing his character, wearing the black and the white, growing the beard out, and the NWO was born. And wrestling as we knew it was never the same again. I mean, wrestling, because of the NWO, you had DX, and you had a lot of influence in WWE, and a lot of the Attitude Era based off of the NWO storyline and ECW. So Hogan's heel turn was very significant in wrestling history, no doubt about it. Alright, that'll do it for my top 10 list of the greatest heel turns in wrestling history. Leave a comment, facebook.com or youtube.com/NoDQCW, and stay tuned to NoDQ.com for the very latest in WWE and TNA.